This is the OTP Pregame, presented by Farm Bureau Health Plans. Farm Bureau Health Plans has been protecting Tennessee for nearly 80 years. Visit FBHP.com to learn all about how Farm Bureau Health Plans can protect you and your family. With Amy Wells, I'm Mike Keith. Welcome to the audio podcast studio, Ramon Foster and the Snickers hot seat.
I am.
Welcome back. Yes.
He keeps pulling the jar closer.
I do. If you're never not yourself, have a Snickers.
That's right.
I'm telling you.
Snickers really satisfies.
It does. Me in my childhood, I had a 3-rotation snack, okay? A Sprite in a can.
Okay.
A bag of chips and a Snicker.
Wow.
That's all. Listen, the worst thing you could possibly have. But you want to talk about living like a king as a kid? That's the trifecta.
Sprite in a can.
Sprite in a can.
But the whole thing, I mean, when you think about it, I mean, that's not that bad.
Not that bad.
I mean, you shouldn't do it 5 times a day.
It wasn't every day. No, it wasn't that.
But you've got to, I mean, if you can't have a Snickers and a Sprite and a bag of chips when you're a kid, when can you?
And to the parents that are holding your kids back from doing that.
Oh, then they're just going to go to college and go crazy.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
It is.
Parenting tips with us.
All right, so what we really should call this edition of the OTP is Totally in the Weeds. If you like football, you will never enjoy an OTP more than you will enjoy this one.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's quite a promise.
It's quite, well, because Ramon Foster's here.
So we can get in
and
the
I
weeds.
have the 5 topics to go in the weeds with him. And then we're going to show you our entire interview with Jim Nagy from the Reese's Senior Bowl. He's the executive director. And we always visit with him in November.
Yes.
Because we know Titans fans like draft talk.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter what the record is.
It's true.
It doesn't matter where you're thinking your draft position is going to be. We know you like draft talk. You like it when we go to the Senior Bowl. You like it when we go to the Combine. You enjoy all of that. You tell us that.
So
sort of.
There you go.
And I'll be honest, you guys have made me like it even more, too.
Mm-hmm.
I used to not even pay attention to college players at all.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, now I'm so locked in.
It's so fun.
It is fun.
It is so fun.
And the only thing we used to do in college at the University of Tennessee, we used to track like the pre-draft specialists and the mock drafts and see how they'd hit on them. The only guarantees usually are like the top 5. After that, the specialists, the draft experts, not really much that you can get from them. But on the other side, going to the Senior Bowl and the Combine, that's where you get all the information.
The key to following the draft analysts is you want to follow the ones who have relationships with real NFL people.
Okay.
Yes.
Because they're getting backstory. They're getting context. They're getting perspective. So that's coming later. But, Ramon, we are going to go deep with you on the 5 topics. Are you ready,
this.
Amy?
I'm excited.
Okay.
I am too.
This is quite the intro.
Topic 1. Is there a real, specific disadvantage for a team coming off a Monday Night Football game like the Houston Texans are this past Monday?
Is there a real? Yes, mentally.
Mentally.
Because when the game starts, the physical side of it, it handles itself. One thing I always say about people when guys have injuries or they have issues is you never have to worry about them getting juiced up for game day. It's going to happen regardless. Now, the mental side of it is they just played a big game against the Cowboys, beat them on their home place, and how do you reset yourself as far as game planning, understanding that there is a short week and fighting that urge to say, man, this sucks. We on a short week. It does play a part in it. That's what becomes bothersome for younger guys that hadn't been in that spot before or veterans who do need an extra day is, all right, can you block that out? This game, more times than not, and I always tell people this, it is more mental than it is physical. Can I mentally set myself up to compete physically? Because, again, most guys run fast, jump about the same, and do the job. That's where the ones who do make it and the ones who don't make it, that's where it taxes you at. Because I've been in this spot, of course, as an undrafted guy. There was so much talent that came after me that was better than me. Mentally, they couldn't check that box every single day, and that does happen on short weeks.
So disruption to the routine is a real thing. That's a real problem.
Listen, we're babies, okay, in this sport. We won't admit it, and we have enough power and flex as players sometimes, either with our trainers, family understands the situation. Hey, Coach, I can't really do this lift this week. You can control those types of things. No, that is a portion of it, though, Amy, to where routine, right? That's one thing coaches also teach, too. What's your technique? What's your routine? Get a veteran that's going to show you the pathway. Those types of things do matter, and the quicker you can figure that out and learn how to block those disadvantages out of your mind, the better of a pro you'll be and the better of a team you can get to. Like the mentalities, we have that be thrown out a lot. What is your team's character makeup? Who are you as a player? Like that's where it plays a part in it too, into development. On Mondays I do this, Tuesdays I do these types of things. And if you can be a veteran enough and stay around the league long enough, then you'll be able to get those things because you're paid a little bit more and you can kind of change the schedule out. But, yeah, that's why it's bigger for the younger guys than it is for the veterans. I'll never forget my first Thursday night game. It was a whirlwind. We were playing in Cleveland, and it was cold, it was windy, and I was not prepared. So much so that I almost burned myself up on one of the heaters on the sideline. It was me and another rookie, Craig Irving, man. It was by far one of the craziest things ever because we just played on Sunday. Why do we have to play on Thursday? Those are the types of things that happen this week.
All right, topic 2. Are you ready?
Yes.
Houston's defense. They have an NFL high 68 tackles for loss.
Yes.
6 per game. They have 20 takeaways, including 14 interceptions. Matt Burke is the defensive coordinator. He was here for the early part of his career. He is a Jim Schwartz disciple. DeMeco Ryans is also a defensive guru from his playing days and his coaching background. So, with all of that buildup, what are the characteristics that jump out to Ramon Foster about the Texans' defense?
First word that comes to mind, and I said it to Coach Mack, stout. Stout. They're not like Minnesota where you feel like we can't get out of the way of everything that's moving. Like there's just so many blitzes and stunts. No, this defense is stout. They got big bodies up front that can handle the offensive line. They got linebackers that can run side to side. Heck, they got a backup, a former first-round draft pick at number 5 overall in Devin White as a backup for their team. And when they play, they know they have to stay stout. And the mentality of their team, too, holds the point, can get up the field, but they also have speed around the edge. That's the way I look at them. This is the type of defense, if I was playing them, my mindset would be we have to beat them up. This is going to be a slow 2 yards, maybe if we can complete and punt. And we got to continue to chip away at them because their depth is so deep that you have to be able to find where's the kink in the armor, right? Where's the hole that we're going to be able to go to? And the only way to go about that is to hit them in the face. Like that will be my mentality. But even towards the linebackers, right? Like Henry To'oTo'o's turned into a guy. He's also a guy that can go side to side. So if you're going to be able to run on them, you need to be good with your tight ends on the edge to be able to get to him on the second level also. And then the back end handles itself. They keep the top on for the most part. And then last week we saw against the Cowboys on Monday Night Football, Derek Barnett is a backup playing for them, another former first-round draft pick. He gets a sack fumble. Big old offensive lineman think it's his opportunity to run the football and catch it. No, then he ends up stripping him the football and running in for a touchdown. They have specific playmakers on their team that make their entire squad good because they do have the talent. But it starts with the bigs that they have up front. Danico Autry, I'm sure we're going to speak about in a minute too. Or at some point this week, he's another one of those big body, long rangy guys that simply move you backwards. Danico's not a flashy guy when the way he plays football, right? That's not his game. His game is to push you backwards and try to get you off your point with his strength. And that's the way I feel about their entire defense, including Mario Edwards, too. And then you look on the other side, one of the, if I can say this word, one of the biggest agitators, I'm not going to say the other word I wanted to say, one of the biggest agitators on this squad is Jerry Hughes.
15th year.
It's crazy.
There was an all-out fight with him in camp that we had joint practices with the Buffalo Bills. He's been that guy every single year of his career, and there's no breathing room with this defense. So it's a mindset type of week, Mike, Amy, to where it's not going to be easy. You just got to keep putting dirt in the wheelbarrow and continue to walk it uphill with them.
Okay, so let me go through the 10 guys they have in the defensive line rotation, and they probably won't all be active, but let's just go through them. Dylan Horton, second-year player out of TCU. You mentioned Derek Barnett, 3 sacks on the year. Will Anderson's missed the last 2 games. We'll see if he plays. He has 7.5 sacks this year. moving inside to defensive tackle. Mario Edwards, who was here in 2022 and in his 9th year out of Florida State, has sort of figured out who he is. He's playing good football. Tim Settle, big old guy from Virginia Tech, 5 sacks on the year. He's having a career year. Kirk Heinisch is a plugger, a guy out of Notre Dame in his 3rd year, plays hard but won't play a lot. The addition there at defensive tackle is Folo Fatakasi, and he has played really well. He's a 6th-year guy out of UConn. He's listed at 318. No chance. He weighs more.
You see it on tape, right, Mike?
You do.
Yeah, you do.
He's a large individual. You mentioned Jerry Hughes in his 15th year. He was initially a bust.
He was.
When he was drafted by Indianapolis. He goes to Buffalo and
became a menace.
And now he's in his 15th year. Danico Autry, who is a little banged up. We know all about him. We talked about him on Titans Tonight with Keith Bullock on Wednesday, and it still upsets me he doesn't play here. But I understand. He wanted more money. I get
business
it,
is
but
business.
I miss him. And then there's Danielle Hunter.
I ain't even mentioned
Okay,
him.
so that is point 3.
Phew.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
Danielle Hunter, 9th year out of LSU. His first 8 years were spent with Minnesota. Interesting fact about Danielle Hunter, he is 7th on the active list in quarterback sacks.
I can believe it.
Would you like to hear the other 6?
Yes, I would.
Okay. Von Miller,
Yep.
Walking
Sure.
gold jacket.
127.5 career sacks.
That's a lot.
Cameron Jordan,
Yeah.
118.5 career sacks. Calais Campbell, 109.5 career sacks. Khalil Mack, 106 career sacks. T.J. Watt, 104 career sacks.
I didn't know he got there.
Yeah.
Huh?
Oh, wow.
Miles Garrett, 95.5 sacks. You tried to block all these guys.
I have.
At
Yeah,
one
I
point or
have.
another. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Danielle Hunter, 95 sacks. On the year, by the way, he had 16.5 sacks last year in his 8th and final year with the Vikings. So, I mean, those are, to me, that number, 16.5 sacks, that's 50 home runs in baseball. That's 30 points a game in basketball. I mean, when you're getting not only to double digits, but you're over 15, that's special. All right, this year leads the National Football League with 72 quarterback pressures.
Crazy.
Wow.
That's 7 quarterback pressures a game. Jeff Simmons just had a great game against Minnesota last weekend, and he had 6 quarterback pressures. This dude is averaging right at 7 quarterback pressures a game. He has 7.5 sacks. So that's really a wind-up for point 3.
Is.
What is it about Danielle Hunter that makes him a force?
Oh, my. So I got 2 stories about him real quick.
Oh, good.
Danielle Hunter.
That's what a podcast is for, I'm told.
Yes, it is. We can expand upon.
The story.
If you can't see my hands, you can see me expand upon, right? That's what I'm saying.
No time limit, no disqualification on a podcast.
Just
And
let
if
it
it's
ride.
good, they'll continue to listen to us too, right?
We'll
So
see.
There's that.
Yeah.
So the Danielle Hunter, number one, there's a clip of him circulating around social media. I'm not sure if you guys have seen it. If you hadn't followed Mike, I mean, he's TN Voice, okay, on all social media platforms.
Thank you.
Amy is AMIE.
That's right.
Yes,
Look
it
at
is.
you
Like
with
the Pure
plugs.
Prairie League song.
We got to plug ourselves,
This
right?
is nice.
Okay.
Yes.
But there's a clip of him on social media, and he's developed this new spin move that I hadn't seen almost anybody do. He is rushing up on the right tackle, which I know that's a sore topic.
And that's going to be a topic
Well, I'll keep that one in the bag.
as we
there.
stay in the weeds.
Exactly. He rushes up and he hit this whirlwind spin move, and he's this close. I snapped my finger, okay, this close to sacking the quarterback. And it is such a ballet type of move for a guy his size that when I first met him as a player, this wasn't who he was, okay? And so the second story, one is that if you hadn't seen that clip, find it. It's a must-see to watch him maneuver the way he is. So that's the first story. The second story was when he first came into the league, They had some veterans on that defense up in Minnesota. Jared Allen was one of those guys. I mean, they just had a plethora of good dudes. Harrison was still on the team at that point, okay? But the D-line was stout. It was stock. It was ready to go. And all I can remember was who in the heck is this Danielle guy? Who is
That's
Danielle?
how it's spelled.
It is. And, of course, we as football players become very cocky and just disrespectful. You mean to tell me I'm supposed to block a dude by the name of Danielle? That's all I kept thinking, okay? Lo and behold, this joker rushes, and he's such a young guy at the time. If you've ever seen him, his physique, I think he's a little bit slender now. When he came in, he was like big and bulky. His arms looked like jacks off of Mortal Kombat, like they were that huge. And a tall specimen, man, and I'll never forget, I'm at left guard, and they do a bunch of the same stuff they do now at Minnesota. They'll stun in, and I'll never forget, he slanted in on me and hit me so hard that I said, yes, sir, Mr. Danielle. That's just where I was.
He wasn't Danielle
He wasn't Danielle anymore.
He wasn't. But that just the force that he came into the league, you got to start doing certain things to solidify yourself as a player. For the most part, for young guys, it's physicality. How can I go abuse the next person around me? I mean, we saw T'Vondre Sweat this past weekend hit Aaron Jones, and I could have sworn I heard Aaron Jones go, ugh, on the sideline. When he grabbed him and fell on top of him, it was by far one of the hardest tackles I've ever seen. But Danielle Hunter's entry into the NFL, to me, was just a wild, reckless human being that was a long specimen of an athlete that was very physical. And that, to me, seems to be the reason he got paid what he paid, why his career is going the way it is right now. And at the end of the day, when you play that position that he does, the physical game always shows up. You can't be soft and play defensive line or football in general, and that's a part of his game that he carries. And that's what's going to be the case this upcoming weekend.
And what's scarier than a guy who is described as physical and reckless and just a beast, the way that Ramon just told that story, is that person, but as a vet, because now he's learned how to control it and how to use all of those elements of his game completely to his advantage and do it with precision.
That's a good point.
So
it is.
It's not just a reckless guy who's overpowering and strong and able to do these things. He's able to contain it and use it in a way because he's refined his craft like all veterans do. And
know how to get home. And then those types of guys like himself that has a reputation for physicality, like Jeff, right? Then you get to a point to where it's sad to say this. No, it ain't sad to say because it's the game. But then you pick and choose when I'm going to go. And that's where it becomes even more tricky. Is I'm expecting the brute force, right? No. Blunt force, I mean. No. Now he's going to hit a parallel on me and a spin move and dip his shoulder. I see he's listed here on the sheet at 6'5", 263. Every bit of him. Like, he had the biggest, longest arms of a young guy that I'd seen at the time, and it's paid off for him.
Nobody could figure out quite who he was going to be, which is why he went in the second round.
Yeah.
Because it's like, yeah, he looks like, is he going to grow into the 300-pound guy? Or is he going to take some weight off and become more, more, when guys remake their bodies, which is what always happens in the NFL, largely in year 1 to year 2.
Yes.
Because you see guys come back in year 2 and you're like, oh.
Hello.
And, it's like Peter Skoronski. Pete had a whole off season where he wasn't having to go on pre-draft visits and run around. And so all of a sudden, Pete's a different he's a different cat. Now, what he weighs is or isn't different. How he looks and how it's put together is different. Sometimes it is what you weigh.
It is.
Because a lot of these young guys, you go from being a big kid, basically, to becoming a man. Which is why when you play these teams with guys in their late 20s, early 30s, or even Jerry Hughes, who's in his and Danico, mid to late 30s, those are grown men.
They are. And that's to your point, like why it's so important for you to, one, jump into the deep end of the pool as a rookie, show I belong. And after that, okay, how do I become better as a pro? What is your training like? Secondly, when do I take off days? Like, those are all part of how you become a pro with longevity, right? Because in college, they tell you everything you're supposed to do. They feed you. Like, there's a lot that has to change. And the one thing that's the biggest advantage for a pro is time. Like, you have free time. So that may mean more rest.
And disadvantage.
Yeah, that's true, too. We've seen how that can go for the other side.
Because everybody talks about money.
Yeah.
I think the biggest disadvantage potentially is time.
Freedom.
Because guys don't know what to do. They're going to order Taco Bell and play Minecraft or
go to Vegas and party on the couches all day long. Yeah, you're right. That is, which is when you say it's a grown man's game. Like managing and budgeting all of that is somewhat, to your point, I think understated. It is. I'll never forget my first off season. My first off season, I'm almost ashamed to just be like, yeah, that was me in that time, because it's so much, to your point, free time, and there's so much access. Well, back then we didn't get NIL in college, so being able to have the funds was new to me. It was, I can just go out of town. I don't have to go to the facility right now and lift. Like, there's a big management of that, but hopefully with this new regime coming in, these young guys seem to have that under the belt a little bit, specifically Savondre. I'm impressed by his longevity he's shown in this big rookie year of his.
Hey, Titans fans, with a Kroger Boost membership, you'll score big with double fuel points, free delivery, and lots more. Go to Kroger.com/boost for details. Kroger, official grocer of the Tennessee Titans. Tighten up.
Home is at the forefront of all that we do. It's why we're so committed to caring for the places and spaces in which we work and live. Ashley, the official furniture provider of the Tennessee Titans.
We continue with Ramon Foster in the Snickers hot seat. We call this the OTP pregame. Are you ready for topic 4?
I can't wait.
Okay, topic 4. How do you expect the Texans to attack the right side of the Titans' offensive line, specifically the right tackle situation?
In waves. That's the first one, because they have it. Will Anderson hadn't played the last few weeks. The last time we were in Houston, he had the 2.5 sack game, if I'm not mistaken. So, of course, if there was a week he was going to come back, it's probably going to be this one for him. But not only just that, the Titans had the illegal formation. So the anxiety of getting on the line of scrimmage this week is something that if I was Houston, I'd jump off sides just one time, just to set them up, to let them know, like, I'm going to be upfield and there's nothing you can do about it.
You mean teams would set out to, and I don't say it in a bad way, but they would say, hey, let's jump one time here early just to get them jittery.
Freak them out a little bit.
Yeah, get them jittery, because here's the other portion of it is, until that side can prove that it's going to stop a nosebleed, what's to convince me that I can't get back there again? You know, I'll give up the 5 to get something later down the line, because if I can rate anxiety to where now, if I'm not mistaken, there's been a league memo about line of scrimmage positioning for tackles, because it is a disadvantage to the outside rusher on the other side of the ball. There has to be fairness in this game. I would get upfield with speed, use that turf to my advantage, Mike, and up the middle, try to stop the run as much as I possibly can to force this team into long down and distances. And as an offensive player, I say that because I always acted on what I thought teams would do to me. I love the idea of like film study and going through it and seeing what my deficiencies are, because if I know how you're going to attack me, then I have a better way of succeeding. And that's where having that experience of those 5, 6, 7, 8-year veterans in the league, which this offensive line doesn't have right now, other than Bronsko getting into the starting lineup, that's where that advantage takes over for you is, hey, if I was that team, I would do this to you. And there's no slight to call somebody out on their weakness, because that's the true sign of being a really good teammate. But that's what I would do this week. I would create so much anxiety for them.
So we started this podcast talking about the mental aspect of routine and all that. There's a mental aspect of going after an opposing team at a place where they might know that there are issues.
Yes.
And so if you can exploit that even mentally, you're giving yourself the advantage?
Yes, 100%. It's just like all of us have grandparents. If my granddad gives my brother $5, I'm going to my granddad to get $5 too, because you got a reputation. Granddaddy, you gave him $5. Can I have, like, they've seen what the tape is showing them against other teams. And that's something that has to be exposed at that point. I at least have to test it, because we were always taught in the NFL across all 32 cities, your film travels. 3 weeks is what it takes. If it leaves in the first week, then I got to try it again. Well, 2 weeks later, let me see if it's still fixed. And if it's not, then it resets over. Your tape travels, and that's why these guys spend so much time in meetings. This is why film study and the way they track and watch tape is a thing now too, because your deficiencies is going to be the first thing that they attack. Nobody worries about you being in space and being good on, linebackers. No, you can't hold up at the line of scrimmage. Let me test this thing out, because it worked for them last week, and I hated it. I had a ball do me like that. Sean Ellis, I'll never forget, he's playing for the Jets. And the week before, I'd given up a sack, and a guy hit me with an outside rush and beat me quickly inside. You know what I had on the first third down? And I told him too, and it was so funny the exchange we had, because he was a ball, I was a ball, I was excited to play against him. He went outside and tried to go inside on me, and I said, "You've been watching tape, huh?" And he laughed. He was like, "I had to try it," and that's the way the game goes. He told me in that moment, I had to try it. I saw it on tape. That's how minute the details are.
Ready for topic 5?
I'm ready for topic 5.
We're already at 5?
I
We're
know.
already 5. We're
Time
in the
flies.
weeds. We're
Time
in the
flies.
weeds on this edition of the OTP pregame with Ramon Foster in the Snickers hot seat. Between weeks 7 and 11, Arden Key has 5 sacks and 9 tackles for loss. A couple of forced fumbles, too. What is Arden Key doing well that has made it hard for offensive linemen to be able to handle him?
Not running. No, what I have seen early in the game, I feel like he's attacking more. Again, shock and awe, right? You got to get guys at that point to where I got to think about what you're going to do. And if you hit me in the face as many times as he has so far, then I got to think about what's next. Or if you make a counter move off of that, which he has been beating guys around the edge, and I feel like his finish has been more relentless as of late than I think we've seen in the last 2 years here. So his ability to be physical with the guys up front and then not sticky. He's long-armed. He's long-legged. He's a rangy guy as itself as it pertains to anyway with his characteristic traits. So he has to be able to use that. He said during the bye week he went and had film study or had some outside counsel. And sometimes it takes a person to say, why are you doing what you're not good at? And I feel like that's what he's done. He is too long and too athletic and just has a relentless motor that it's a shame that he wasn't using. I think he was just trying to play the technique just a little bit too much. I think when guys are vets like him, you do have the ability to stray outside of your parameter. And that's what I feel like he's been doing as of late. But to me, it does show him carrying his lunch pail every single Sunday. And just he's tired on the sideline when he comes over, And I think he's also added a little fun to his game. The reactions that he and Jeff have on the sideline seem like there's a little bit of a competition that I see from time to time. And there's a need and want for it, too, because somebody on this team's got to answer the call to help this team win more games. And as of late, it has been him.
The other part of him, too, is he's the long-rangey guy. He doesn't weigh as much as everybody at his position. But, man, he is strong and explosive in his lower body. And,
you see it.
And when you see that part of his game, you don't think he's going to be necessarily just from when he stands next to the other 11 guys, this is going to be one of the more physical dudes. He's not big like Danico Autry, and Harold is shorter and stouter,
right.
As a player. But this kid, he's not a kid anymore. He is he's fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
He is.
And the other thing about him, everybody thinks like Danielle Hunter, LSU guy.
Yeah.
He's from Georgia.
Mm.
And, man, every football player I've ever seen come out of Georgia high school football, it seems like, they are.
It's a different world.
The level of competition they play, whether it's in a city or in a suburb or out in the country.
Yeah.
The level of football in the state of Georgia in high school is amazing.
It is. That Warner Robins area, they're from north of Georgia all the way down to the bottom parts. I look at the recruiting a good bit, the amount of 4 and 5 stars. You'll be 30, 40 players deep, and they're still in 4-star rankings.
Yep.
That's unheard of almost in a sense.
And that's why for many years, coaches that I've talked with have always contended the best job in the Southeastern Conference is Georgia. And you'd say, well, what about Alabama? Well, in Alabama, you're going to have to go against Auburn for players. And then they're like, whoa, okay, well, what about Florida? It's like, well, everybody in the country comes into Florida after players, and they have Florida State and Miami in the same state, and now you have South Florida and Central Florida and Florida Atlantic and Florida International and so on and so forth. You look at Georgia, though, because of how Georgia Tech is set up as a university,
Yep.
they and everybody thinks, well, it's just engineering, but they don't have every single college that Georgia does. So if you want to go get an education, it's possible they don't offer something you may be interested in. They're more specific. So not only do they have high academic standards, it's a little different. And while they do well, and Brent Key's got them playing well, and they have a history of their own, Georgia has an inside track, and then, with their reputation, they can go to Florida, they can go to South Carolina, they can go to Tennessee,
but
they can go to
Alabama. A lot of homegrown people
right.
too.
They do.
You
Yes,
don't
they
have
do.
to. You don't have to go all over the country.
If you know the core of your class is going to come from that state every year, I mean, it's what Kirby Smart's been able to do.
It is. He's put a stronghold on it because you're right. In the years where Tennessee was besting them, they go get
Kids
Jamal
from Georgia.
Lewis. They go get Eric Berry. Eric Berry wasn't supposed to leave Georgia.
I mean,
for Tennessee,
historically, it's been, many of the greatest players at the University of Tennessee were Georgia kids. How has Kentucky rebooted their football program? If you look at the list, it's a lot of kids from Georgia. And it may be kids that Georgia didn't recruit, but it's like the level of competition they've still played. I mean, you go get a 3-star out of Georgia, it's like that guy can become a 4-star, 5-star college player.
Yes, and if you look at their top 10, 7 of those top 10, to your point about Georgia not wanting all of them, but they're going to get the cream of the crop more times than not. I mean, I know NIL somewhat can change that these days, but they're getting 7 of the top 10 more times.
And speaking of prospects, we turn now to Jim Nagy, who is the executive director of the Reese's Senior Bowl. He joined Amy and me just a few days ago to talk about some of the trends and what's going on. As we stay in the weeds in this edition of the OTP Pregame, here we talk 2025 draft with Jim Nagy. Amy Wells and I are so glad to welcome the executive director of the Reese's Senior Bowl, Jim Nagy. Jim, thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be back on, guys. Good to see you again.
Jim, we've heard a lot about the 2025 draft class and that it's not loaded with a ton of top-end players, but that day 3 could be pretty loaded because of all the players who had the extra COVID eligibility. Do you think that's an accurate statement?
That is definitely accurate. And it's a good thing for the Senior Bowl, really. I mean, I think I look at this whole draft thing selfishly, very selfishly about who we can, get to Mobile and whatnot. I do think in a normal year, an average year, I think most teams would have somewhere in the mid-teens in terms of first-round grades on players. In a good year, it's somewhere in that low 20s to mid-20s. And this year, talking to teams on the calls that we just had, we just finished up 14 calls trying to get our roster selection process wrapped up. And there are some teams that don't have 10 first-round grades right now. So it is a deeper class, exactly why you said, because it's the last year of the extra COVID year. But there's not a ton of high-end guys. I had a national media member reach out the other day, and he was going on a show, and he wanted to ask my opinion on it. And he said, in the team that he was in his market, they will be picking very high in the draft. And he asked, is this not a good year to have a top 5 pick or a top 10 pick? And I said, no, it's probably not a good year. Because there's last year, there was a lot of teams wanting to trade up for the quarterbacks. I don't think we're going to see that this year. So it is going to be a deep class. It's not great up top.
Jim, which are the strongest positions in the 2025 NFL draft as it looks now, and which appear to be the weaker positions?
Definitely running back. This is the deepest running back and most talented running back group we've seen in a long time. A lot of high-end guys. Teams don't really want to take those guys, in the first couple rounds nowadays. But I think, depending on where the run happens, there's going to be a run happen, and it's probably going to be on day 2 somewhere. I think you'll see Ashton Jeanty from Boise State go in the first round. I'll be curious to see if any other guys, sneak up in that range. But I think Ashton's definitely there. I think the question with him is how high he'll go, how high he'll climb during the process. But if the run happens in the second or happens in the third, but I do think it's going to happen somewhere on day 2, and we've got 12 junior running backs on the Senior Bowl board right now that are now available to us. I'm actively trying to lock some of those guys up right now with agents for roster spots, and we're going to bring 12 to Mobile. We've invited 6 seniors. We think all those guys are going to be drafted before the 5th round. And again, in a normal year, at the running back position, before we were able to bring juniors, that is a position where we were dipping into those later rounds where we like to stay out of. So no, that's a really good class. The defensive line class all the way across from the interior guys. You could draft somebody to pair with Big Tavondre. I know he's having a great year for you guys. And then all the way out to the edge group. I mean, there's some pass rushers. Not in the first half of the first round, but there's some really good depth in the pass rush class as well.
Who are some of the players who you feel have really helped their 2025 draft stock by their play in 2024?
Wow, we could probably go position by position there. There's a number of guys that have really jumped out. I mean, Ashton Jeanty being one of them. I mean, we liked him a lot, but he's having a phenomenal year. But there's a lot of people talking about Ashton Jeanty. You work across the board. Like there's some tight ends in this group. There's a kid, Gunnar Helm at Texas, who coming into the year was probably an undrafted free agent, 7th round pick. He's probably squarely in the middle rounds right now. I mean, that's one guy that stands out. On the defensive line, there's a guy like Derek Harmon at Oregon, who coming into the year was a late round guy, transfer from Michigan State. He's playing great for the Ducks right now. He dropped a ton of weight in the offseason, really looks like a different player. And he's got himself, I mean, there's teams that have top 100 grades on Derek Harmon right now. That's a massive jump in 1 year to go from, being a 7th round free agent level player to a potential day 2 player. That's a big jump. Those are a couple names that really stand out, but I think we could probably go across the board and pick a guy probably in every position group that's helped himself quite a bit.
We're at the real moment of the season now in college football. These rivalry games, championship games coming up, bowl games, and even most importantly, the college football playoff upcoming. Give me some players that you think down the stretch, as the games get more spotlight, they could really help their 2025 draft stock in November, December, into January.
I would start at the quarterback position. I think, when you look at this year's quarterback class, I don't know if any of these guys have played a completely clean season. I think there's been rough patches for most of the guys in this class that we've talked about. Carson Beck had a rough patch in the first half against Alabama. He had another rough patch against Ole Miss. He was our top graded quarterback coming into the year. Had Carson Beck came out a year ago, I mean, he was trending towards being a 1st round pick. He just progressively got better and better over the course of the year. I think Carson needs to if they can get into the playoff at this point, make a nice run. Quinn Ewers has had a pretty good year this year, but he's had a rough patch. Jalen Milroe, so to me, really, it's the quarterbacks, and even Cam Ward. Cam Ward has played really good football this year, has helped himself a lot. Being outside of the air raid offense at Washington State, coming down here to Miami. But I really look for this year's quarterback class. They're going to need some performances down the stretch here in November and December.
Let's talk about Colorado wide receiver / defensive back Travis Hunter, because if he enters the 2025 NFL draft, do you feel that he could be the best player in the draft? And also, do you really believe that he could play both ways in the National Football League?
I'll start with the first part. He could definitely play both ways. I think where the league and what he's doing, I'll just say this off the bat, what he's doing right now with the volume of snaps at the FBS level is unheard of. We've seen two-way players. We've seen Charles Woodson. We've seen Champ Bailey, going way back in time, but we've never seen players log this amount of snaps. So to me, it's incredible toughness. It's incredible focus. It's incredible, durability, stamina, all those things outside of the talent, right? We all know how talented he is. I think where the league, when they really start drilling down, everyone knows Travis Hunter is a 1st round player. What they really need to figure out is how good is he at those two respective positions, and then which one is he best at? It's incredible he's playing both, but what is the ceiling at each position? What does that look like? Is it Pro Bowl at both positions? Is it Pro Bowl at one of the positions? Just how good is he at those two spots. So that's going to be for the teams drafting up high. They're going to have to figure that out. I know for the Senior Bowl, we haven't spun our wheels watching a lot of Travis Hunter tape. If we were lucky enough to get him in Mobile, we'd love to have him. But I think that's going to be the conversation is, do we play him on defense full time and then spot play him on offense and try to, manufacture 5 to 10 touches a game? That might be the route. But again, I think that's what those teams drafting up high are going to have to spend a lot of time on.
Shohei Ohtani broke the sort of glass ceiling in baseball for a guy doing two different things. Any thought that as the NFL continue to evolve, that Travis Hunter could end up being almost the Ohtani comp, if you will, to somebody who plays more than just a couple of plays on both sides of the ball?
I don't think so, Mike. I don't see that happening. You guys see it too. I mean, if you go to a college football game on a Saturday and stand on the sidelines, even in the SEC or the Big Ten or the ACC, the Power Four conferences, and then you go to a Titans game on a Sunday, it's a completely different level of speed and violence. And I just don't see a player lasting like that on both sides of the ball as a full-time two-way player.
All right. Well, I just wanted to check because I know I'd seen a couple interviews with you where you talked about Hunter and you had me convinced. You had me convinced that he might have that possibility to do more of both on both sides of the ball than somebody in a long time. Let me move back to the quarterbacks for a second. You hit on some of the top ones. Jim, you hit on some of the guys who need to play well down the stretch. As a group, do you like these quarterbacks?
I do. I think I can safely say it's not going to be last year's class where we're going to have 6 guys go in the top 12. That was a pretty unique group. And a lot of those guys are playing at a high level. Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix are doing some really good things. Drake May is playing really well for the Patriots now that he's gotten in there. So I think those guys are proving themselves that was going to be a really good class. I'm excited to see, in 5 years what that class pans out to be. But I like the depth of the class. I'll say that. They do need to put together a nice run here to kind of get up into that first round conversation. Are any of these guys slam dunk first round picks? I don't think so at this point. And then there's some depth to the group too. When we work down the line, I think there's going to be some guys, in the middle to late range that are pretty intriguing players. But I don't think it stacks up to last year. I think there's potential there. I think if a couple of these guys can get into the playoff and go on a nice run, they can kind of salvage, what has been kind of a rocky season so far. But it's not up to last year's class. And just being fair to this year's class, I don't know how many classes will measure up to last year.
Well, you mentioned Bo Nix, and he's had a pretty solid year for Denver this year as a rookie. And it's clear that his experience at Auburn and at Oregon seems to have helped him with the transition to the pros. So thinking in that regard, is there a Bo Nix comp in the 2025 draft who has the experience and will be a good player for a team in their rookie year based on the experience that they've had in college?
Yeah, it's a great question. Let's be fair. Bo's playing great. Let's not temper. They should have beat Kansas City if they don't have a field goal block. He's playing really good football out there. Dylan Gabriel from Oregon is going to break his all-time starts record if he stays healthy down the stretch of the year. Played a ton of football. Now, he doesn't project to be a first-round pick like Bo was, but he certainly has the experience factor working for him. You can see how efficient he is for Oregon. There's a number of these guys. Cam Ward's played a ton of football going all the way back to his time at Incarnate Word, and then up at Washington State. And he's played in a couple different systems and played with 3 different groups of teammates, which I always think is cool. I think in 3 different parts of the country. So I think that's cool for a player's resume, just like it was for Bo playing in the SEC and going all the way out to the Pacific Northwest. So I would say guys like that. I say Cam Ward, has played a ton of football and Dylan Gabriel, and then you can go down the list. The Will Howard at Ohio State and Tyler Shuck at Louisville is kind of the sleeper name right now, who's playing really good for Louisville. Can throw the heck out of it. So there's certainly some guys in this class that are Bo-like in terms of the experience.
We've got to ask you about a Tennessee guy. His stats aren't really through the roof, but are you still impressed with edge James Pierce?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I think people were picking James apart a little bit early in the year. mean, let's face it, he's coming off a year with double-digit sacks. There's a couple guys in college football this year, like Ashton Gelati up the road from you guys, Louisville, up I-65. I mean, he was another double-digit sack guy. And when coordinators have an offseason to sit around and kind of look at the schedule, okay, who's on the schedule this year? Who do we got to get ready for? I just think they threw a lot of James Pierce's way in terms of slide and protection and chip blocks and, just running a lot more people at him before he had a chance to get to the quarterback. So I think he was just learning how to deal with all the extra attention early on. And they do a great job up front in terms of running him off people like they did when Byron Young was there. And we've seen what BY has become as an NFL player. I think that's going to help James Pierce. But they're different body types. James Pierce is a longer guy, but what they have in common, they're both very bendy and they work off other people really well. And that's what they've done. And you've seen the pressure rates have gone up over the course of the season for James. So again, I was talking to an agent the other day who's in the mix for representing James Pierce. And we just had the conversation what this guy would look like in one-on-one drills at the Senior Bowl when he's only got one guy trying to block him. I think he would make a lot of money. The agent actually, he brought up the name Von Miller and what Von Miller did at the Senior Bowl back in the day in one-on-one. So yeah, we're still big James Pierce fans down here in Mobile.
Let me ask you a Senior Bowl insight question, Jim. Why do you guys always end up with so many outstanding pass rushers there in Mobile?
I don't know. I guess we get lucky. No, I mean we're just trying.
You do not.
we're trying to bring the best players, Mike, and I do think the agent community is bought into what the one-on-ones can do for both the offensive line and the defensive lines. I think both groups understand if they come to Mobile and if you're a pass rusher, it's not like you have to win every single rep. To me, I've always told guys, because I've seen this in draft rooms. I mean, if these guys put 2 or 3 good rushes on tape, similar to Tavondre Sweat, he took Bo Limmer last year, who's now the starting center for the LA Rams, and he just picked him up and walked him back to the quarterback. And I mean, you make some plays like that, and you plant the seed in a defensive line coach's mind that, oh my God, this is what I could work with. And those guys get all fired up about the potential of what they could make a player. So again, if the agents and the players know they only have to have a handful of decent reps over the week to move the needle, it's easy to get those guys bought in to come into the game.
Last question. In the NFL this year, defense has had a great start to the season, a first 2+ months where defense has been more dominant than it has been in years. Jim, we're seeing the same thing in college football. There are more good defensive teams than there have been in recent years. What do you think the trend is overall with defense that has enabled them at the college level onto the pro level to step up how they're getting after offenses that, quite frankly, for about 10 years felt like they worked them over? That's
a great question. Geez. I would say a couple things. One, I think we're seeing faster players on the defensive side of the ball, especially at linebacker. You're seeing a new wave of linebacker that we're kind of weeding out the guys that can't run or play in space. So you're seeing like you guys have drafted a couple over the last couple of years. Speed at linebackers is a big deal. It's becoming more of a space game. Everyone knows that. And then at the college level, I do think the transfer portal is hurting offenses. I think offensive execution is down because you're seeing so many players on the move. And that's not a great thing for continuity purposes or whatnot. So, and it's not just players on the move, it's coaches on the move too, right? I mean, we're seeing that. It's just there's just moving parts all the time. You can't even keep up with it in the offseason. We don't even know where these players are going to end up playing. We start watching them in the spring and they're at one school, and then we get to August and they're somewhere else. So I would think those are probably the two factors that just off the top of my head. That's a great question though. I would love to have more time to think about that one.
We love having you on in November. You are so kind to give us our first taste because, in this part of the country, our fan base loves the high school recruiting, a little nuts over that here in the Southeast, and have gotten just as nuts over the draft, which is so much fun when we come to Mobile to see people around who have that same sort of enthusiasm at the stories and the hope for the future with their team and needs and whatever. I mean, it's really It's really become a special thing for the NFL fans in the Southeast. So thank you so much.
No, thank you guys for having me on. And for you guys, I mean, it probably stemmed from when you hosted the draft, whatever that was.
Yeah,
5 years ago.
5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I was up there for it, working for ESPN. It was unbelievable. And I think you're right. I think the stories, they did the Hard Knocks this past spring with the Giants. And, that series seemed like it was tailing off a little bit, doing the in-season, training camp stuff. We'd seen that over and over and over. Talking to the guys that did the Giants Hard Knocks. People are captivated by it. They're captivated by the draft process. And if you have a team that, is struggling, like you said, it's on draft days like Christmas morning, it gives you some hope. So, we just appreciate you guys coming down and spending the week in Mobile with us every January. We look forward to having you every year.
We do.
We love it. Jim Nagy, Executive Director of the Reese's Senior Bowl. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you.
Okay, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, Titans fans, SeatGeek makes it easy to find tickets so you can be a part of all the touchdown celebrations this season.
Whether you're buying or selling football tickets, SeatGeek is the place to do it. SeatGeek is the official primary ticketing partner of the Tennessee Titans.
The most disruptive idea in ticketing, a ticket that works. Expect the expected.
SeatGeek.
SeatGeek. Made a rookie mistake this football season? Maybe you should have had a Snickers.
Because now you can enter for the chance to turn those rookie mistakes into prizes, including a trip to Super Bowl 59.
Visit snickers.com/rookie mistakes for details.
All right, it's time to get to the
Ooh.
fast break portion of the show.
You got it.
Ramon Foster
Yes.
will hold the. They had Little Caesars pizza in here yesterday.
They did, and
The
I
actual?
was faked out.
Yeah.
Mike.
I thought it was a box.
Yeah, because I thought someone moved our boxes.
Yeah. So I'm walking out of here at
And there was-
7:30, and I was like, "Oh, those boxes, And
Yeah, we've got to remember to grab them.
These boxes are empty.
There's no pizza in there.
There's no pizza.
Yeah.
So they
It's
got
functional.
They got 2 boxes laying there, and I'm thinking at first, they've put our boxes out for the OTP for tomorrow.
Yeah.
So
I thought we had to remember to grab
So
them.
I just go by, got my backpack on, walk into the car, go by. No, there's still pizza there. And
I left the building.
I know. I love cold pizza.
I do too.
All right, it's time for the key ingredients of the game delivered by Little Caesars.
Hit it, Mike.
Key number 1, keep going with the plays in the passing game. 98-yard touchdowns are great, but yes, they occur only every 62 years. So we, the Titans, will have to take all of the 15-yard completions, the 20-yarders, the 30-yarders, the 40-yard touchdowns. We'll take them all. In the last 2 games, solid gains in the passing game have been showing up more and more. Titans need more of them Sunday in Houston. Key number 2, finish the job on the quarterback. Jeffrey Simmons had 6 quarterback pressures against Minnesota. Tavondre Sweat 5. Arden Key had 4. That pressure was real, and yet only 2 sacks. Coach Brian Callahan said the key to turning pressures into sacks is staying in rushing lanes. Keep collapsing the pocket. Don't let the passer escape. Do that with last week's pressure on C.J. Stroud, and I bet the sacks will come. Key number 3, keep getting big plays up and down the roster, especially from the youngsters. The Titans are having more and more players show up in the box score. Jarvis Brownlee and Darrell Baker in the secondary, Tavondre Sweat in the defensive line, Bryce Oliver and Jaquan Jackson at receiver and on special teams. As this roster expands with guys who now have experience and confidence to make a play, those youngsters need to keep showing up. Their contributions can be the difference in potentially pulling out a road win on Sunday.
You went over by like 10 seconds. Little Caesars is the official pizza partner of your Tennessee Titans. Download the Little Caesars app and get your favorites delivered today. Delivery fees do apply.
Unless they bring it to your office and don't tell anybody.
Don't tell you. You have to tell me there's pizza in the box. I never assume.
Usually they send out like a memo. Hey, we've got pizza.
Pizza.
Enjoy
Go
pizza.
get some.
Yeah.
It's like, just put sticky on it or
Maybe
something.
they did email it. You didn't get it.
No, they didn't.
We don't miss those.
I checked.
We don't miss those, Ramon.
I know.
We miss the ones about meetings and such as that. Hey, you need to go get a flu shot. Miss those.
Never saw it.
Yeah.
Pizza, never miss.
Never miss it.
Get the mayonnaise.
All right, time for a mayo-tivation from Hellman's and Amy Wells.
May your Titans cheers be loud and your buffalo chicken dip make you, your mama, and the entire family proud. Hellman's, the official mayo of the Tennessee Titans. Mayo game day be delicious.
Isn't it time they change? Haven't you read that a lot now? They need to change that up a little bit. They shake it up, on the Will Levis commercials.
Well, but I try and give it a little different flair every time.
It's got a pizzazz to it that is special.
I try to add a little something
little
to it.
zip.
That was good the last time.
Yeah.
But, I mean, how important is Hellman's in the coming week with all of the dishes that will be made?
I was actually going to take that giant jar.
You can't.
Because I'm going to need it for Thanksgiving.
Deviled eggs, maybe?
To the OT people.
Yeah.
Get some Hellman's this week. You're going to the grocery store this weekend.
You're going to need it.
Just pick it up.
You put it in everything on Thanksgiving.
We got some in my house.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah,
but, you're just going by and you think, I'm just going to grab that because
Yeah.
I'm going to need it.
You are going to need
You
it.
will thank us on the next OTP that is not in the weeds.
Yeah.
I mean, this was a lot of hardcore football stuff.
Next week, let's just talk about what everyone ate for Thanksgiving.
Let's not.
Seriously?
Because it would take too long with me.
I
I
love
love
Oh,
Thanksgiving.
yeah. You kind
Me
of do a
too.
big thing. I just kind of have my standbys.
You do? Oh, come on.
No, it's good. It's
good,
great.
though?
It's like
Okay.
all the classics.
I've been telling everybody to listen. I've yet to have green bean casserole.
I love green bean
What?
casserole.
You love it?
I love it.
Never had it.
Ramon, I'm going to make it and bring it to your
There
house.
is
We're neighbors,
Yeah.
basically.
nothing Thanksgiving-wise I don't think I turned down.
Nothing.
Nothing?
I don't think so.
I'm not
Even
a cranberry person.
I love cranberry.
I love cranberry.
But part of it is if you offered it to me on May the 7th, probably not. But on Thanksgiving, I'm up
Everything
for
goes.
I get that.
hot fruit salad. It's delicious, made with like Cheez-Its and all kind. I love all the
What?
casseroles.
Never heard of that.
Oh, it's so good.
Is it? That yin and yang right there actually sounds pretty
It's
solid.
so good.
Huh.
All of it.
Yeah, I like anything put in Jell-O. So like,
Really?
it's a big Jell-O holiday.
I'll
yeah.
do that at Thanksgiving.
Yeah, you can put
Again-
a lot of stuff in Jell-O.
Again, on January 8th, not
Not
interested.
interested.
Not a thing.
Nope.
Well, I'm glad you went up to January 8th because my birthday's January 7th.
Is that right?
There you
We'll
go.
celebrate that.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Early. I mean,
I'm just
not about
floored
me.
you've never had green bean casserole.
never had it.
You
no.
can even make it in the microwave.
Well, and then I'm like Mike though. Like I have like my Thanksgiving things, and like I've seen it at people's house. Like coaches cook for us on the holidays and colleges and stuff like that. And I just pass it by because I probably want more turkey or more lasagna or something like that.
It has a weird look to it.
Yeah.
But you've got to dive in anyway. I'm
Okay.
making it for you.
You
I'm
know
doing
what?
this.
Lasagna, very underrated at
I'm
Thanksgiving.
glad you said that.
Lasagna?
Yeah.
Easily.
What?
Yeah.
Easily. I'm Amy.
Very
What?
under. It shows up, and you're like, oh, here's
No,
lasagna.
we
I'm
can
going to have some of that.
Those feel like competing mains to me. You
Well,
can have
but-
turkey and a lasagna.
Why not?
I mean, that's the South.
Oh.
What are we talking about?
Turkey and lasagna. Maybe even together. I
Ma-
mean, because you can mix it all
Yeah.
together, and it's just,
What if I
I mean,
made a
are you-
lasagna this year?
people would love you more.
They
You
would.
think?
They'd
Yes,
appreciate
if
you
that's
more.
even possible.
Oh, it sure is.
Yeah.
I need every little bit I can get, folks.
You do.
Every little morsel.
I love it.
Ramon, thank you.
Anytime. Anytime.
Don't say that. We
You'll
have
be
to
back.
do the one next week early.
Seriously.
Thank you for joining us for the OTP pregame. For Ramon Foster in the Snickers hot seat and Amy Wells, I'm Mike Keith. Thank you to the OT people. Let's go beat Houston. And
Yes.
thanks for joining us for the OTP.